Hi teachers, I've been getting a lot of questions about EasyBib and if it's the right tool for our kids to be using for MLA questions. So I wanted to do a quick screencast just to give you some sense of what EasyBib does well and what EasyBib might be a challenge for. I'm at the EasyBib homepage, as you can see here, easybib.com, and this is what our students will see when they come to it. Because this is a free tool, I always like to tell the kids that it is not a smart tool. They are the smart researcher. This is simply a tool to help them. The first thing I'll point out to you is that it is preset for MLA 8, and MLA 8 is the most current form of MLA. If it's been a while since you've had to cite something professionally, you may notice some differences to what you used to do in MLA 7 or the earlier versions. So as I go through this, I'm hoping some of that will become a little bit more clear for you. Okay, so they don't have to change anything here. MLA 8 is the correct citation. I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to go to a New York Times article that I got off the internet. I'm going to copy the URL and I'm going to paste it into EasyBib. Now, I'm going to say cite it. Now, notice what it says here. It says that this is a website. If I click cite this, just as it is, the default setting, it's going to do it. Look, it says gathering information, and it even gives you, if you actually take the time to look, which not many students do, it gives you some questions to ask yourself about your source's credibility. One good way to get students thinking about what they're citing and the resources they're using is to hold them accountable here and ask them on EasyBib's page to consider the questions that are being asked. I'm going to do a graphic organizer that pulls out some of these questions so that if you want to, you can use this as a quick check that you put with your works cited to get them to check the credibility of what they're working on. And the other thing that I want you to notice is that the EasyBib is trying to help me. It's finding the New York Times, and I'm going to go ahead and say cite this. This is the route most of our students take. Now, EasyBib again is trying to warn them. It's saying, hey, here's what we found. We found the title of the article, the publisher, when it was published, and the date we accessed it. But it needs some help with an author. Okay? Now, the students have two choices here. They're going to continue to the final step, and many just ignore this page and scroll right to the bottom to create the citation. This is where a good citation goes bad, because EasyBib has already told us that they need help with something on this entry, but there's something else that's wrong with this entry right away. Now, as a researcher, you and I know that I just got this from the New York Times. So really, I shouldn't have this listed as content published originally on a website. EasyBib is capable of more if you ask it to do it. So I know that this is an online newspaper. So I'm going to go ahead and say that. Now look, it's redirecting me to the appropriate form. If students don't do this, their entries end up looking strange. Here, you'll notice that it asks me more information about this newspaper article that I want to cite. For example, did it come out of a print copy of the New York Times? Is it just available online? Or did I get it from an online database like ProQuest? Now remember, I always tell the students that when they pull something from a database, be it a newspaper article, a scholarly article, or even a simple encyclopedia article, you want to use the citation that's included with that article because that's guaranteed to be correct, and just paste that into your works cited. However, EasyBib is trying to make sure that it has the right information for what is being asked of it. So again, if we scroll down, you can see that it's asking for a variety of different things, but it's still having trouble with that author. This is where we tell our students to go back and look at the article they're using to see if, in fact, there was an article. And in this case, an author, in this case, yes, in fact, Jonathan Martin wrote this article. Now, if a student is to go back and type in Jonathan's name, okay, and check over these other fields and click Create a Citation, it's going to cite it properly. Okay, so here we have our citation. Here's our author, the title of the article. Notice that the New York Times is only listed one time, and it has the date it was published, and it has the URL. Now, the URL is something that MLA has gone back and forth on. Do I need to require that? Absolutely. For MLA 8, the formatting says that the URL is supposed to be included on all entries. Now, why do I recommend you do this? Because it actually makes your job easier. If you want to go back and look at a source that a student has given you, you now have that direct link to go back to where they got it from. So not only is this standard practice now with MLA 8, but it's also just a really good idea. Now, once you're copying and pasting this kind of a citation into a works cited, and I have a sample one here, I want to show you a couple of different things. First of all, you'll notice that this first entry is the citation as it would have appeared from a student if I hadn't done anything to that New York Times entry other than cut and paste it into the original EasyBib box. Notice that it never found the author on its own, that it has taken the New York Times because it doesn't realize it's not the newspaper itself, and it's doubled the entry. It has it as the New York Times, because it's not understanding what it is that it's being asked to cite. Other than that, the rest does include the date and it does include the URL, but it's not giving you all of the information that you need. If you scroll down, you'll notice that the entry we just made successfully together is listed here as well. And so there's your point of comparison. If it has the author, if it has the title, if the New York Times is only listed one time, that's standard convention for how the entry should look. So if you're getting something that seems weird, if you're getting entries that, the publication is repeating itself, there's probably a reason for that. That's a reason that a student didn't take their time and really look critically at what EasyBib was asking for. So this might be a place where you want your students to pay attention. If you're someone that really cares about that they're making the right choices with MLA citation, you want to make sure that you are, alerting them that you're checking. And again, I'm going to do some sort of a graphic organizer that can kind of give you some suggestions for things that you want them to check ahead of handing in a works cited sheet. I'm not suggesting you have the time or the interest in checking every single works cited that comes in over the course of a year, but I'm just saying, if you're one of those people, and I know there's a lot of you in the building who have come to me and said, I don't understand why they're using EasyBib, it doesn't seem to do things correctly. You're right. It doesn't, because it's just a simple tool and the students aren't using it properly. The other thing that I want to point out to you here is I mentioned that MLA 8 is the way to go. I have a second set of citations here, and you'll notice that this is for the Mayo Clinic, and here's my website here. I did take both of the websites and put them into EasyBib so I could see what we would get. This top entry is cited correctly. It has the title of the article. There is no author in this case. It's just listed as Mayo Clinic staff, so I let EasyBib do it without an author. You'll notice that we have information here, Mayo Clinic being one of the big entities, and then followed by Mayo Foundation for Medical and Education and Research, which is the other piece of their title. And it has the date that it was published, October 5th. And it has the URL. This is a correctly cited MLA 8 for this web page. The difference is the one below it is not correctly cited, and it's not super, it's not super wrong. There's things here that don't belong in 8, and there's things here that 8 just doesn't require. So, for example, you'll notice that in addition to the date that it was updated, I also have this web. That's something that a lot of you noticed, that the entries in the last formatting structure had either print or web as part of the entry. That's no longer required in MLA 8. The other thing that's not required is the date of access. So the fact that we access this article today doesn't mean anything for MLA anymore. But the thing that is missing from this is the URL. And that's something, as I said before, you want to make sure your students are including. So if you're not seeing that, it's probably a red flag that they are not using the proper form of citation. So just to review, there's a couple of things I wanted to point out that you want to keep in mind for what's changed for MLA 8. First of all, they're trying to streamline things. The focus of research is considered. So where people are getting their information from. That's the reason that they removed the print and the web. They're really looking more at what kind of package you're getting your information from. It's supposed to streamline things for everyone, and I think it's a step in the right direction, even though it's a little bit of a learning curve. There's one standard format for all citations, so you'll notice it's not as structured as it used to be, where this is what a website looks like and this is what a book looks like. We're looking for a lot of the same things. The URL, as I pointed out, is important. You want to make sure that's in there. They don't want hyperlinks. They want it just to be the text. For my purposes, I like the hyperlinks myself, even though that's not absolutely true to MLA 8. I feel like if they're giving you an online document and you want to check those links, I don't have a problem with them being hyperlinked. But it's not a bad idea to tell the kids that in a true, strict MLA 8, if they're headed off to college and their professors are, rule followers, they wouldn't make that a live link. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that you can now use things like screen names for Twitter handles and things like that. So if they're citing a YouTube video and it has some crazy, crazy clown number 5 as the screen name, that is absolutely okay to put into your MLA formatting. It seems wrong from a traditional perspective, but it really is the closest thing that's going to get you the most exact MLA entry. So keep that in mind. All right, so that's basically the gist of MLA. Now, I do have a page that I have on my wiki page, which has documents that you can share with the kids. That MLA, what's new in MLA that we just looked at is here. We also have my in-text guide, which is my standard when the kids come down to me and ask me, how do I cite something? This is what I'm going to send them towards. We updated this for MLA 8 last summer, so it should be current as of the current formatting guidelines. You can see we've got in text and how they put that in. And if you continue to scroll down, it gives you information on your works cited page. It also gives you samples on the back. Okay, so it'll show you how it's cited. And the little red lines will tell you more about the type of formatting, the fact that it's got to be a specific font, it shouldn't be bolded, it should look like this with a last name and a page number at the top, it should be sorted alphabetically by the first word of the entry. You can see in most cases that's the author's name, in some cases it's the title, and it gives you the examples one by one so that you can kind of get a sense of what they look like. These are all resources that if you want to put them on your Google Classroom and make them a good way for your kids to connect with them, that's absolutely fine. I will post all of these, as I said, in a place that you can get them easily, and feel free to share them because that's what they're there for. If you have any other questions about MLA or EasyBib, you can always stop down and ask me. I am by no means an expert, but I try my best to keep up with what it is that the kids are trying to do and the tools they're using. So feel free to come in and use me as a resource. I'm going to do a second screencast that is aimed at students that walks them through the EasyBib process. You could also share that with your kids, and if that's helpful to them, that's great too. All right, if you need anything else, as always, just come down and ask, and I'd be glad to help.